won't keep hammering this, but you've been in the industry for quite a while here, and you've done a lot of great deals and had a lot of great sports properties in the mix with NBC. What ones do you reflect on that have been your favorite in terms of whether it's the type of deal that you got done that drove the most value, or one of them just was the biggest curveball perhaps that you brought into it that maybe threw a cat amongst the pigeons? What do you reflect on?
I'll tell two quick stories. So the deal that I'm happiest with and has been really gratifying for me is to see what we've done with the Premier League. And while I get probably an inordinate amount of congratulations or credit for it, I really owe a lot of the credit to my son, who at the time the Premier League came up was an 18-year-old high school Premier League fan. And I really was not that aware of it. We had just been acquired by Comcast. This was back in 2011. And my son, Robbie, said to me, "Dad, you have to get the English Premier League." And I said, "Well, Robbie, what do you mean?" He says, "Dad, everybody, all of my friends watch it. We are diehard fans." And sure enough, on a Saturday morning, I would be sneaking out to go play golf. And here's this 18-year-old kid on the sofa watching Tottenham play Arsenal, who had just gotten home 4 or 5 hours earlier. And you learn a lot from paying attention to what your kids are doing. And so when the opportunity to engage with Richard Scudamore and the folks at the Premier League came up, we had the benefit of having a broadcast network and a new nascent cable network, which used to be Versus, which we had rebranded into NBCSN. And we brought this idea to them about what we would do if we were fortunate enough to get the Premier League rights. And to his credit, and to his hard work, because he had to convince a lot of very skeptical owners who didn't think that they could leave ESPN or leave Fox to come to someone who had never really done their sport before, we were able to show them what we could deliver for them. And now the Premier League is in every conversation. If you walk out here to Times Square and you see people walking up and down 7th Avenue, they're wearing as many Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool kits as they are Cubs, White Sox, Yankees, or Mets. So that's number one. The other one that I look back on really fondly is when we lost baseball in 1989-90. We had a new president come in, Dick Ebersol, who really challenged us to replace 30 weeks of baseball programming, which is not easy to do, especially when you didn't have any money to spend. And as a golfer, I was familiar with the Ryder Cup, but up until that point, the Ryder Cup had been on tape, on cable, and on a 1-week delay. And so we went to Joe Steranka, who at the time at the PGA of America, and made a proposal to him to bring the Ryder Cup onto NBC. We didn't have any money to spend on rights, but we made a deal with two sponsors, Cadillac and IBM, to be the two sponsors who were also at the time the two big sponsors of the Masters. And he agreed to do that. And so we made that deal in early 1990 for the 1991 Ryder Cup at Kiowa Island in South Carolina. And in the fall of 1990, America went to war with Operation Desert Storm. And as a result, in April of 1991, so 5 months before the Ryder Cup was to take place, both Cadillac and IBM pulled out of their deals for the Ryder Cup. Ebersol comes into my office, closes the door, and said, "This Ryder Cup deal that you did, which I don't quite understand what it is, but you've lost your two sponsors. We got to get out of this deal." I said, "Dick, we can't get out of this deal. The deal's in 5 months. We've made a commitment." He says, "We don't have any money coming in." I said, "Well, we'll do everything we can to sell it." We ended up selling some of the inventory, not nearly as much as we had hoped for. We lost a ton of money on it. And Dick was like, "You're getting out of the Ryder Cup deal as soon as this Ryder Cup is over." And I just kind of said, "Okay, well, let's just get through this Ryder Cup." And so if any of you remember that Ryder Cup from Kiowa, the U.S. was getting waxed after the first day. They were down 6-2. And so Saturday morning, before the Saturday matches, my phone rings, and it's Kerry Haig, who runs the Ryder Cup for the PGA of America. And he said, "I have some bad news." And I said, "Great. You can't give me any more bad news. We've sold half this, not even half the inventory." He says, "Well, we have a fog delay. We can't start on time. We're not going to be able to start golf until 10 o'clock. Now, we had to be off the air by 6 o'clock for local news and nightly news. So I said, "Well, you start it when you start it." So we get to 5:30. The U.S. is making a major comeback, but we still have 9 holes to play. All 4 matches in the afternoon matches were still on the golf course. So I called Dick and I told him, I said, Dick, we've got 9 holes to play and we can't leave. He says, and he's not happy. He says, okay, but don't run any commercials. I said, you don't have to worry about that. We haven't sold any commercials. We stayed on the air until 10 minutes of 8 when we ran out of daylight at the end of the day. The U.S. had come all the way back and tied the event, ended up going to win it on Sunday. Bernard Langer misses a putt. Hale Irwin wins the match and becomes a huge, huge event. It was known as the War by the Shore. But the funny story is that Sunday morning, this is now 1991, this is before cell phones, I'm in the production compound thinking about what my next job is going to be because this has been such a disaster, and I knew that there wasn't a lot of patience going around for losing money on properties. I get the production manager comes out and says, you better come in here. Ebersol wants to talk to you. So I was like, oh God, it hasn't chapped my ass enough already, right? And he said, how long do we have this deal for? I said, well, Dick, we have the 93 Ryder Cup and that's it. But you want me to get out of it? He says, don't get out of it. I just got a call from Jack Welch. Jack Welch was the chairman of General Electric, who had called Dick at home that Sunday morning to tell him this was the greatest thing he'd ever seen on NBC, and he wanted to make sure we keep it and do whatever you have to do to make sure we don't ever lose it. So we've had the Ryder Cup since 1991, and I'm proud to say we have it till 2031. We have the one coming up this September from Beth Page. So that's one of my favorite stories.